By 4:30 in the morning, the town looked like a place that had given up arguing with itself. Streetlights hummed over empty lots and dark storefronts, over plywood windows painted with old promises, antiques, check cashing, family dental, letters flaking away year by year. The paper mill down by the river still ran nights, still breathed out a sour heat that settled in your jacket and followed you home. Everything else had thinned out. Jobs, patience, mercy. Greg Lewis rolled through it anyway, as he did most mornings, his old Dinah rattling at idle like a coffee can full of bolts. 50 years old, broad in the shoulders and thick through the chest, he rode with the back-straight posture the Marines had burned into him long before his knees started complaining at stoplights. A puckered scar hooked under his jawline where shrapnel had kissed him and left in a hurry. Faded eagle, globe, and anchor ink crawled down his right forearm, blue gone to ghost gray. His leather vest was cracked at the seams and smelled faintly of rain, engine oil, and old cigarettes he no longer smoked. Retired staff sergeant. On paper, anyway. He worked when work came. Construction framing, welding patch jobs, roofing when somebody needed hands that showed up sober and didn't scare easy. In between, there were VA appointments he hated, highway loops he pretended were errands, and long rides timed to dawn and dusk when traffic was thin and his thoughts stayed at a manageable hum instead of turning into a swarm. He had rules now. Not regulations, not orders. Rules. Pay cash. Keep moving. Don't let strangers pull you into drama. Those rules had kept him out of fights in parking lots and family arguments in diner booths, kept him from acting on every raised voice and slammed door that made his pulse jump before his brain caught up. Rules were how you built a life after service that didn't look like service but still held together. The 24-hour truck stop diner off Exit 11 sat in a wedge between the interstate and a feed supply warehouse, neon open sign buzzing like a trapped fly. It was too early for the breakfast rush, too late for the graveyard lull. A couple long-haul rigs idled in the lot, their marker lights glowing red through diesel mist. Greg parked near Pump 3, killed the engine, and listened to the sudden quiet ring in his ears. Inside, heat hit him first, then burnt coffee, fryer grease, and lemon cleaner. A young cook in a stained apron was stacking hash browns on the flat top with the detached precision of a man who no longer expected tips. Two truckers in mud-crusted boots watched muted cable news over the pie case. At the counter, Ruth, the overnight waitress with the smoker's laugh and the reading glasses hanging on a beaded chain, looked up as Greg came in. "Morning, Sergeant," she said. He tolerated the title from her. "Morning. The usual. Black coffee. And if you still keep those little ibuprofen packets by the register, I'll take one." She poured without asking sigh. "Rough night?" "Just weather." No weather in sight didn't matter. People used weather the way they use prayer, for everything you didn't want to explain. He slid cash across the counter, counted his change into his left pocket, pills into his right. The mug warmed his scarred hands. He drank standing up, eyes on the window, watching reflected movement more than faces. Habit. Not fear, just math. Entrances. Exits. Who was alone? Who was pretending to be? At 4:52, he set the empty mug down, nodded to Ruth, and headed back out before someone tried to make conversation that might lead to questions. The morning was lightening by degrees. Sky turning from black to bruised blue over the interstate ramps. Greg popped the ibuprofen, dry-swallowed, and reached for his gloves. Then he heard it. A dull thump. Metal from inside metal. Not loud, but wrong. Wrong in the way a cough in a quiet barracks was wrong. A sound that didn't fit the pattern. He turned. 2 pumps over, a white cargo van idled crooked at number 5. Older model. No side windows, rear doors with narrow glass panes filmed by road grime. It should have looked like every contractor van in 3 counties. It didn't. Another thump came, sharper this time. The whole van rocked once, then settled. Greg took 1 step forward before he told himself not to. From behind him, the diner door opened. One of the truckers shuffled out, zipping his jacket, glanced at the van, glanced away. Greg kept watching. For a fraction of a second, a hand appeared against the inside of the rear window. Small, pale, fingers spread hard enough to flatten at the tips, then gone. The breath left Greg so fast his chest hurt. A muffled cry bled through the van's body panels, strangled by insulation and steel but unmistakable. High, frantic, not angry, not performative. Fear with nowhere to go. The driver's door opened and a man climbed in fast, ball cap low, gray hoodie up despite the mild morning. He never looked toward Greg, never looked toward anyone. Just yanked the door shut, threw the van in gear, and revved hard enough to chirp the tires. "Hey!" Greg shouted, already moving. The van lurched away from the pump, cutting across painted lines toward the lot exit. The trucker by the door squinted after it, then gave a tired shrug. "Probably family crap," he said to nobody in particular. Another customer at the diesel island snorted. "Custody thing. Seen it before." Greg stared at them a beat too long, fury climbing his throat like acid. Family crap. Custody thing. Words people use to excuse their own stillness. He pulled his phone, thumb already dialing. 911. What's your emergency? Possible abduction in progress, Greg said, voice clipped, controlled. White cargo van leaving the truck haven off exit 11, south lot. I heard banging from inside. Saw a juvenile hand in the rear window. Female voice yelling. The dispatcher's tone shifted from bored to professional, but not urgent. Sir, do you know the parties involved? No. Could this be a custodial exchange dispute? It could be a kidnapping, Greg snapped, then reined it in. Listen to me. Someone is in that van against their will. Units are limited in that sector this hour. I'll enter as suspicious vehicle pending verification. Can you provide plate? Greg spun, trying to catch the rear as it hit the frontage road. Partial only. Last 3 maybe 27K or 27X. There's a deer head hunting decal, lower left rear door, rear passenger quarter panel dented in, about softball size. Copy. Do not pursue, sir. Officers will attempt to locate. He was already straddling his bike. What's the event number? She gave it. He repeated it once, committed it. Sir, I need you to... He ended the call, shoved the phone into his vest, and kicked the dyno awake. Engine thundered under him. Familiar vibration coming up through boots, knees, spine. He pulled out hard, tires skipping on a damp patch before finding grip, then swung onto the frontage road in the van's direction. He could still turn around. He knew that. Could tell himself he'd called it in, done his part, gone back to his lane. That was the rule. Report and move. Instead, he rolled on the throttle. The van was 3 lights ahead, white box shape bobbing over patched asphalt. Greg kept distance, far enough not to spook, close enough not to lose. Early traffic thickened by the ramp, delivery trucks, shift workers, a school bus still empty. The van dodged through with impatient, jittery corrections, not lost, not casual. Running a route it had already picked. Greg's phone buzzed in his vest. He ignored it, until a red light trapped both of them 2 car lengths apart. He angled his helmet slightly, trying for plate digits through road spray and grime. Couldn't get clean read. He caught the dent. The decal. Gray hoodie shoulder through the driver window. No passenger in front. The light changed. Van shot through yellow, clipped the edge of the median, kept going. Greg took the turn a half-second later and felt his rear tire skate before biting down. His phone buzzed again and again, insistent. He finally hit speaker one-handed. "Sir, this is County Dispatch returning. Are you following the vehicle?" "Yes." "You were instructed not to pursue. For your safety, disengage." "For her safety, no." A pause. Keyboard clacking in the background. "Sir, we still have no confirmation of an abduction. This may involve domestic history." Greg almost laughed, except there was nothing funny in it. Domestic history. 2 words broad enough to bury anything. "I heard her," he said. "She was screaming." "Understood. Continue to relay location if possible." That was all. No sirens in the distance. No helicopter chop. No cavalry. Just him, one van, and the flat gray ribbon of road running out toward farm country where county lines overlapped like bad seams and response times doubled. He gave coordinates at each landmark: grain elevator, closed co-op, Route 6 split, and each time the dispatcher thanked him like he was reporting a pothole. The stakes settled on him piece by piece, heavy as wet canvas. If he stayed on this, he could get himself killed. The driver could be armed, desperate, high, all 3. Greg had no badge, no legal shield, and just enough anger under the skin to make mistakes if he let it lead. One wrong move and he was not a rescuer, just an old biker in a confrontation with a stranger, easy to paint as aggressor. He could lose the little work he had lined up next week, lose his bike in an impound, lose whatever fragile trust he'd rebuilt with the VA shrink, who kept telling him to choose calm over chaos. If he backed off, a girl vanished into paperwork. He had seen what happened in that gap between report filed and action taken. Seen it overseas when, waiting for confirmation, became body bags. Seen it stateside in quieter uniforms. Bruises explained away, neighbors looking at their shoes, judges granting one more chance to men who could mimic remorse for exactly 10 minutes. He remembered a corporal in Fallujah, 19 and trying too hard to sound 25, once telling him, "If we're wrong, we apologize. If we're late, they die." Greg had carried that sentence home like shrapnel. Ahead, the van blew through a stop sign onto a narrower county road lined with bare cottonwoods and drainage ditches full of black water. Greg followed, keeping 200 yards, his headlight off when dawn gave him enough to see by. He talked to dispatch, got transferred, repeated everything to a new voice that asked for the plate again, as if repetition might summon details he didn't have. By mile marker 9, his fuel light blinked amber light. He swore into his helmet. He had maybe 30 miles before the bike started starving under load. The van had no such problem. Maybe full tank, maybe planned. His phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Call when safe." He recognized the area code. Local deputy he'd served with overseas years back. Now in uniform somewhere, 2 counties over. Greg had sent one quick message at the last stoplight without thinking much. Need ears on active possible kidnapping. White van, no units yet. He didn't call yet. Not while leaning into curves at 60. The van's brake lights flashed once, then it turned onto another road with no signage, just a rusted mailbox cluster and a church graveyard set back behind pines. Greg eased off, let distance grow, watched dust plume in the morning light. This was the point where people got lost. He pictured the hand on the glass, small, flat, desperate. Not a custody hand, not family drama, a trapped kid hand. "Dispatch," he said, voice low and steady now, command tone returning from someplace he'd tried to bury. "Be advised, vehicle just turned east on unmarked county lane south of St. Luke Cemetery. I am maintaining visual. Request immediate intercept from any available unit." Copy, the third dispatcher said. Different county, same drag in her vowels. I'll notify patrol. Notify faster. Silence then. Sir, I understand your concern. No, he thought. You don't. He rolled his shoulders once, felt old scar tissue pull, and made the choice all the way through this time. Not half made at the pump, not made in anger when the van first moved, but made with full weight and clear eyes. He was in it now. Not because he liked hero stories, not because he missed adrenaline, because somewhere ahead of him, a teenage girl was learning in real time whether adults meant it when they said help was coming. Greg twisted the throttle, kept the van in sight, and rode into the waking fields. The county road narrowed until it was barely more than 2 lanes of patched tar between winter fields and drainage cuts. Dawn bled in low and colorless, turning frost silver along fence wire. Greg kept his distance, and his breathing measured, eyes moving from the van to mirrors to shoulder to van again, an old scan pattern he didn't have to think about. The white cargo box ahead of him fishtailed once in loose gravel, corrected, then settled back into a steady 60. Not random driving, not panicked wandering. The driver stayed just under reckless, just over legal, like he understood exactly where the line was and how long he could dance on it. Greg tapped his headset mic and read off another marker. Crossed County 14 at Old Rail Spur, eastbound, passing Red Barn with collapsed silo. Copy, dispatch answered, voice thin through static. Units advised. Advised? Not dispatched. Not en route. Advised. He checked fuel again. Light still on. He did the math instinctively. Range, road conditions, how hard he'd been on throttle, reserve margin he didn't have. He could peel off now, gas up, and lose the van for good, or stay on fumes and pray for a station that wasn't shuttered. The van took a hard right at a T intersection without signaling. Greg counted 2 seconds before following, giving the turn just enough delay not to look connected. New road, no center line. Tree cover thickened, then broke into open pasture with sagging wire gates and rusted equipment sunk half into mud. His phone rang again, this time with the old ringtone he used only for people who'd had his number before smartphones got smart. He palmed accept and kept his eyes forward. Kincaid, a man said without preamble. Greg felt a flicker of relief that almost made him angry. Matt, you on duty? Not till 7. What the hell are you doing sending me kidnapping texts at dawn? Following a van with a kid in back. Female, teen maybe. Heard her, saw her. Dispatch is playing maybe not. A breath on the other end, then the tone shifted. Marine to Marine. Years removed but intact. Give me what you got. Greg gave it fast. Partial plate, hunting decal, dented quarter panel, gray hoodie driver, route turns, event number. Kincaid repeated details in short-clipped chunks as he typed. You armed? Kincaid asked. No. Good. Stay that way. You engage only to keep eyes on and report. Greg didn't answer. Lewis. He's not driving like a dad taking his kid to school, Matt. I know. I'm checking databases from my laptop. Keep talking. The road dipped through a shallow hollow where fog held low like dirty wool. The van disappeared for 3 seconds, reappeared climbing out. Greg rolled through the dip and glanced left just long enough to catch movement in the rear window. A face this time. Pale oval, one eye visible through grime, gone as soon as it appeared. Dispatch. Be advised visual confirmation of occupant in rear compartment, he said. Looks juvenile female. Appears distressed. Static. Then, can you confirm she is restrained, sir? His jaw tightened. I can confirm she should not be in a cargo hold. No answer. The van braked hard at a four-way stop where two mailboxes leaned like drunks, and a hand-painted sign pointed toward Miller Feed. Greg rolled off and downshifted, watching for brake lights, turn signals, tells. The rear doors jolted over potholes, and he saw it, a thin crack at the right latch where the door wasn't seating flush. Each bump widened it by a finger width before slamming shut again. At the exact center of the intersection, the van swerved around a tractor-trailer easing out from the right. Tires barked. The back end snapped, recovered, and something black skittered out from under the right rear door, bounced twice on asphalt, and spun into the gravel shoulder. A phone. Cheap, older model. Screen already spider-webbed. Greg had half a second to choose. Stay on van. Lose potential evidence. Grab phone. Risk losing visual. He checked mirror, empty road behind him, and made the decision. He leaned hard, cut to shoulder, and snatched the phone one-handed. On the second bounce, front tire clipping gravel. The bike shimmied violently. He feathered throttle, corrected, and got upright with his heart punching his ribs. By the time he looked up, the van was 200 yards ahead and accelerating. Dispatch. Object recovered from roadway, likely from suspect vehicle. Appears to be cell phone. I am still in pursuit. No immediate reply. He tucked the phone inside his vest, rolled on power, and reeled distance back to what he could manage without announcing himself. Through the cracked glass, he caught a faint glow from the dropped handset before he covered it again. His own engine sounded too loud now, each piston stroke a countdown. The road network started to fork like capillaries. County signs gave way to hand-lettered lane names nailed to trees. He gave location pings anyway. Every bridge crossing, every church, every grain bin with a painted logo. Twice he was transferred between dispatch centers and forced to repeat from scratch while trying not to lose the van in morning farm traffic that wasn't traffic so much as random obstacles. A manure spreader doing 15, a school maintenance truck backing blind, a pair of deer that exploded from a ditch and vanished before impact. With each transfer, urgency bled out. Any active protective orders on plate match? He asked one dispatcher. Information restricted pending confirmation. Pending what? Pending contact with involved parties. He almost threw the phone. Ahead, the van cut left onto a frontage road running parallel to the interstate but hidden by scrub and embankment. That mattered. It meant the driver wanted speed options without cameras and toll readers. It meant planning. Greg finally got a clean look at enough of the plate when the van slowed for railroad tracks. 27X. He repeated it 3 times into the line until someone acknowledged. Then his bike coughed once under throttle. Fuel starvation, brief but unmistakable. Damn it. He had no choice now. He thumbed contacts and called the first name on a list he kept for weather breakdowns and funerals. Rico, the man answered, voice rough with sleep. Need you awake right now, Greg said. Possible kidnap moving east farm routes toward interstate corridors. White cargo van, partial plate 27X, deer decal rear. Can you get to I-81 North on-ramp at Mercer and watch for it? A rustle, then bed springs, then boots on floor. You serious? I don't call you for jokes. Copy. 10 minutes. Bring your helmet cam. Rico didn't ask why. On it. Greg ended and hit the second call. Anita. A pause, then. Greg, you okay? Need a favor. Alert tree to a white van. Same description I text in 30 seconds. You near Route 9? 5 miles out. Take 9 and Old River split. If van pops west, I need eyes and a deputy who won't shrug this off. Her voice hardened immediately. Got it. Send in to Club Thread and call him my cousin in County Patrol. Keep it tight, no cowboy stuff. Look who's talking. He disconnected before she could say more, then sent a text blast with descriptors, direction of travel, and one line in all caps: "Do not engage driver. Track only." The van ahead slowed unexpectedly and turned into a gravel pull-off beside a shuttered fruit stand with boarded windows. Greg blew past without looking over, counted to 5, then looped wide at the next dirt entrance and came back shielded by hedgerow. The van was already pulling out again, now heading south, testing for tails. Greg stayed tucked behind a feed truck for a mile, then re-established visual at long range. His phone buzzed with incoming from dispatch and from numbers he didn't recognize. He ignored all but Kincaid. "Talk," Greg said. "I ran your partial through local hits with vehicle description," Kincaid said. Keyboard sounds in background. "I've got a probable owner, Darren Pike, 38. Mother's ex-boyfriend turned spouse for 6 months, now divorced. History flagged domestic incidents in 3 counties. Greg's grip tightened on the bars. "Any kidnapping priors?" "No conviction. But there's a restraining order violation last year, and another report coded custodial interference, dismissed after mediation." "Of course. Listen, there's more. I can't access details directly from home on sealed files, but I'm seeing a shelter intake linked to the girl's mother. Juvenile statement attached, marked confidential. Could mean abuse disclosure." "Could mean. Didn't need to." "Dispatch acting like it's a custody misunderstanding," Greg said. "Because on open records it looks muddy. X had contact rights petition pending after yesterday's hearing. No active amber because legal guardian status is disputed, and no immediate bodily harm confirmed on paper." "On paper." Greg watched the van cross under an overpass and chose the same lane 3 heartbeats later. "You believe me now?" "I believed you from your first sentence," Kincaid said. "I'm calling in to my shift lieutenant early. I'll push for intercept and BOLO upgrade, but I'm still 25 minutes from a marked unit." "Too long." "I know. So you keep being my eyes. You do not force a stop alone." The line clicked as another call tried to break in. Greg switched over to dispatch. "Mr. Lewis, be advised this incident may involve custodial exchange complexities. We have no confirmation of—" He cut her off. "You have probable owner with prior restraining violations, and I have a terrified kid in a locked cargo compartment. What more confirmation do you want? A body?" Silence. Then carefully. "Units are responding as available." It was bureaucratic language for nobody close enough yet. The complication stacked higher. His fuel was near empty. The suspect was testing route discipline. Official response lagged behind geography. And now that Greg knew the name, the legal fog got worse, not better. Exactly the kind of gray zone predators hid in. If he physically interfered too early, Pike could claim harassment, self-defense, unlawful detention by a civilian. If he waited too long, the van could cross state lines where every report would restart with fresh disclaimers. He needed fuel and seconds at the same time. A handwritten sign for Haskell Farm Supply and Gas appeared like a mirage 2 miles ahead. 2 pumps, 1 working, no canopy. Greg watched the van continue straight, then made a decision that tasted like rust. He peeled off, jammed his bike at the pump, and filled just enough, 3 gallons, no receipt, eyes never leaving the road while the nozzle clicked and hiccuped. Every second felt like betrayal. While the last half-gallon ticked in, he yanked off his right glove, pulled the cracked phone from his vest, and thumbed the side button. The screen was still alive at 5% battery. No lock code prompt, just an old home screen, and a red notification badge over a voice app. 1 unsent recording draft. Duration, 0 minutes, 27 seconds. He jammed the phone back into his vest as the pump clunked to a stop. Back on the road in under 90 seconds, he pushed hard and got lucky. The van had been slowed by a school district bus turning wide. Visual reacquired. On a straight stretch, he hit speaker on the recovered phone and held it close enough for his helmet mic to catch if needed. At first it was just shuffling, muffled fabric noise, then a girl whispering so close to the mic her breath hissed across it. "Mom, if this sends, he found me after court, at Ruthie's lot. He said get in or he'd hurt you again. He took my phone, but I kept the old one in my boot. Please don't call him. Please." A bang. Her voice dropped to a panic whisper. "He says nobody's gonna believe me 'cause of the papers. He says by the time anyone checks, we'll be gone." The recording cut with a scrape and static burst. Greg felt something cold and focus settle under his ribs. Rage, yes, but stripped clean of heat. The old operational calm. The one that made room for decisions. He replayed the clip once directly from the recovered phone, then used his own phone to record and forward that audio to Kincaid and dispatch with the event number in subject. Within 30 seconds, dispatch called back, suddenly sharper. "Mr. Lewis, we received audio. Can you verify source?" Recovered phone fell from van at County 22 stop. Message was saved on that device. "Understood. Stand by." "Negative on standby. I'm moving." He hung up before she could object. The land ahead started to change again. Fewer houses. More industrial leftovers. Concrete pads, rusted chain link, a gutted bait shop sign pointing toward the river. Pike wasn't heading for the interstate now. He was bending around it, following service roads and levee access where cameras were sparse and witnesses thinner. Kincaid called back, out of breath like he was moving while talking. "I got partial confirmation from records supervisor. Juvenile in your audio, likely. Kayla Mercer, 15. Mother filed emergency protective petition 3 weeks ago naming Pike. Petition stalled when case bounced county due to residents' dispute." "Stalled," Greg repeated flatly. "Yeah, and sealed shelter intake notes indicate she specifically said he threatened to take her where no one checks for days. That line is in the summary." Greg scanned ahead. On his right, a faded county map sign flashed by. Riverside Marina. 6 miles with an arrow almost hidden under graffiti. No one checks for days. His mind built the route before he finished reading. Avoid toll cameras. Avoid town centers. Use frontage and levee roads. Stage at abandoned marina lots near the old paper barge slips. Plenty of places to switch vehicles. Plenty of tree cover to run. Matt. He's heading Riverside. Possibly old Riverside Marina access. Damn. That place still half shut? Shut enough. Closest unit is 12 out. If they don't get stuck behind morning freight crossing. 12 could be forever. Greg toggled to conference with Rico and Anita on group call, helmet noise roaring around his voice. "Listen up. Possible destination Riverside Marina off Old River Road. Rico, hold Mercer on-ramp in case he doubles back to interstate. Anita, take Marina North approach and stay hidden. Eyes only unless I call otherwise." Rico answered first. "I'm in position. No visual yet." Anita, 5 minutes out. I've got County Scanner app, and my cousin says deputies still scrambling." Greg gave them Pike's name and the restraining order detail. The line went quiet for half a beat. This wasn't vague suspicion anymore. This was target, victim, pattern. "Copy all," Anita said finally, voice tight. "No hero moves unless you say." "You don't wait on me if she's in immediate danger," Greg said. "That sounds like a hero move." Just do your lane." He clicked off and focused on the van. It turned exactly where he expected. Left at Old River Road, through a break in cottonwoods, toward low ground where morning mist clung thick over brown water. Midpoint, if stories were honest about such things, never felt like revelation. It felt like commitment closing like a trap. For Greg, it landed as a simple truth. He was no longer a witness trying to hold visual for police. He was now part of the only functional net between a violent man and a 15-year-old girl who had already told the world what was happening and been answered with paperwork delays. He adjusted his mirrors, checked distance, and started placing pieces the way he would have placed a fire team years ago. Cover exits, deny speed, protect the non-combatant first, ignore ego bait. He marked likely choke points. One-lane marina access with eroded shoulders, derelict gatehouse, chain-link funnel near the boat ramp. A van could power through one barrier, maybe two, but not without losing momentum if blocked right. He also accepted something he'd dodged since retirement. Calm had not meant stepping away from responsibility. It had meant choosing where to spend it. Ahead, beyond the trees, he glimpsed the rusted arch sign for Riverside Marina and the white van slipping beneath it. Greg keyed his mic one more time, voice even as steel. "All units, all riders. Suspect entering Riverside Marina access now. I am setting position." Then he rolled forward into the narrowing road, no longer waiting for perfect permission that wasn't coming in time. The Marina Road pinched down to a single cracked lane between cattails and rusted chain link. Greg kept the van centered in his sight line and rolled off just enough to mute his engine note. Ahead, Pike didn't hesitate at the derelict gatehouse. He drove straight through the half-hanging arm, plastic snapping and whipping behind him like tape. Inside the property, the place opened into a dead world of concrete ramps, empty slips and skeletal storage sheds, silvered by river damp. Signs that had once said no wake and fuel dock leaned at bad angles. Two gulls lifted off a roof and vanished into fog. "Visual maintained," Greg said into his mic. "Suspect inside Riverside main grounds. Moving south past Dry Stack." No response. Just static that hissed and popped. He tried dispatch on his phone. 1 bar. Call failed. Pike took a sudden right behind an old bait shack, then swung left across a lot littered with steel drums and rotten pallets, throwing gravel. Greg followed the line and felt his rear wheel kick once as he crossed a rut. He corrected and pushed through. The van clipped a stack of plastic dock floats with its rear quarter and sent them tumbling into the lane behind him. Greg stood on pegs, threaded between a blue float and a busted cooler, and ducked under a dangling cable. Pike wasn't just running now. He was shaping the ground, turning every blind corner and loose object into a weapon. The van shot past a concrete pump house and angled toward the old service road that paralleled the river. Greg's stomach dropped. If Pike made that road, he could cut east to a farm bridge, cross into the next state in under 15 minutes, and reset the whole chase under a new jurisdiction. New report numbers. New pending verification. Same girl, worse odds. He got Kincaid on the 3rd try. "Matt, he's inside Marina, moving like he knows layout. If he hits River Service Road, we lose jurisdiction in minutes." Kincaid's voice came thin through interference. "I've got 1 county unit diverted, but they're hung at a freight crossing, ETA 8, maybe 10. Too long? I know. Where's your backup riders?" "Anita North approach. Rico holding interstate on-ramp." "Keep them out of direct contact. You hear me?" Greg watched the van disappear behind a dry dock hangar, then reappear unexpectedly on a different lane, now heading back toward Central Yard at speed. "Too late for that," he said, and dropped the call. Pike had seen him. No more tail game. This was direct. The van feinted toward the boat launch, braked hard, reversed in a spray of rock, then rammed through a chain draped between two concrete bollards. Chains snapped, whipped, and sparked off bumper steel. Greg flinched as it lashed across the lane 2 yards ahead. He cut left and chased through the opening. To his right stood a fuel island long decommissioned. Tanks tagged for removal but never removed. One impact there, one rupture, and this entire lower lot could become a firebox. Greg pictured Kayla zip-tied in that van and tasted copper at the back of his throat. Pike blew his horn twice, short, deliberate pulses, then accelerated toward the interior sheds where the lanes split in a maze of blind turns. Signaling somebody? Warning somebody? Or just trying to rattle him? Either way, the message was clear. The man driving that van had moved from opportunistic kidnapper to cornered predator, and cornered predators destroyed whatever they couldn't keep. Greg toggled group call and finally got Anita. "Talk to me," she said, wind loud on her line. "Do not enter Central Yard," he snapped. "He's aggressive and using debris. Hold north choke only." "I'm at North Gate now." No visual. "If he breaks east, call it and stay clear." He switched to Rico. "Any sign at Mercer Ramp?" "Negative," Rico said. "I got State Trooper rolling by slow. No stop. Keep eyes up. He may bolt for interstate soon." Greg killed the call and leaned into another turn. The van was 50 yards ahead and accelerating toward a raised strip of broken pavement that led between two collapsed warehouses. The fastest line to the main exit, if Pike committed. If Pike succeeded now, Greg didn't just lose a suspect. He lost the evidence chain, the timeline, maybe the girl herself. And Kayla had already told them what would happen if she disappeared into dead ground. No one checks for days. He gambled. At the next fork, instead of tracking directly, Greg shot left toward what he remembered as a connector road that could cut Pike off at the east side. He had ridden this marina once 15 years ago when it still had charter boats and bait in coolers. Memory said there was a pass-through behind the pump station. Memory lied. Floodwater had eaten half that connector away. The asphalt ended in a jagged bite of mud and rebar. Greg saw it too late. He grabbed brake, rear tire skidding. The front hit, exposed steel with a violent metallic crack. Handlebars wrenched sideways and the dyno went down hard, 600 pounds of bike and gear slamming him onto his right shoulder before sliding 10 feet through grit and standing water. For one blank second, all sound vanished. Then pain rushed in, hot through his ribs, electric at his collarbone, sharp in his right wrist, where he'd tried to catch the fall like a younger man. He rolled, coughed mud, and forced himself to his knees. The bike lay on its side, rear wheel still spinning, exhaust hissing. Fuel smell bit the air. His phone had launched from his vest and sat face down in a puddle 10 feet away. The van engine roared somewhere beyond the warehouses, then faded. "No," he rasped and got up. He killed the bike ignition, heaved it upright with a grunt that tore at his side, and took stock in 3 seconds. Right mirror gone, clutch lever bent but usable, crash bar scraped deep, front brake line intact. Rideable, if he was careful. Maybe. He snatched up his phone. Screen spiderwebbed, black. He held power. Nothing. Comms gone. He pulled the recovered burner phone from his inside pocket. Dead, too. For the first time since the diner lot, uncertainty hit him clean and hard. No dispatch in his ear. No map. No confirmation where Anita or Rico were. No way to push updates that might keep someone else alive. He swung back onto the bike, jaw clenched against the pane, and limped it forward through mud until he regained pavement. He listened for the van, using sound like in blackout drills. For a moment, he heard nothing but gulls and the weak clatter of a loose sign. Then he caught tire noise ahead, fast, heavy, coming from the north side where Anita had been told to hold. Damn it! He hammered the throttle and came around a concrete office shell, just in time to see white metal flash between two sheds. Pike's van burst into the north approach lane. Anita was there, angled across part of the road on her road glide, trying to hold distance while keeping visual. She looked over her shoulder at exactly the wrong second. The van swerved toward her front wheel, not full impact, but close enough to force a choice. Stand and die or dump. She dumped. Her bike low-sided in gravel and slid into a drainage ditch. Anita tumbled once, jacket tearing at the elbow, helmet striking concrete with a crack that made Greg's stomach drop. Pike didn't slow. The van fishtailed past her and disappeared toward the central exit lanes. Greg braked beside the ditch, jumped off, and dropped to one knee next to Anita. Anita, you with me? She sucked a ragged breath and tried to sit. I'm up. Stay down 2 seconds. Her visor was gouged but intact. He popped it open. Her eyes tracked him, pupils even. Blood ran from a split at her lip. She cradled her left wrist against her chest and trembled so hard her boot heel tapped the concrete. My bike? She asked. Can wait. He went west? Toward main exit. She tried to stand and almost blacked out, hand hitting the ditch wall. Greg caught her with his left arm, and pain lanced his shoulder. He swore. You're hurt, she said, seeing his face. Join the club. He scanned the lane. No deputies, no sirens, just the distant growl of the van and the ticking cool of damaged engines. Their net had failed. He'd lost comms, lost time, and now Anita was injured. If Pike reached open road, all of this became witness statements and regret. Anita grabbed his vest with her good hand. Greg, listen, you can still cut him at main access. There's only one paved way out unless he goes through the mud flats. You need EMS. She gave a harsh, almost angry laugh. Call them on what? Your dead phone? He looked down at the black glass in his hand, then back at her. She was right. It did not make leaving her easier. Can you move to cover? He asked. She nodded once, jaw set despite the shaking. Pump house wall. I'll stay low. He helped her to her feet and half walked, half guided her to the concrete corner of the abandoned office. Every step she hid a wince from the wrist. He wanted to stay. Wanted to make sure she didn't crumple when adrenaline left. He couldn't. When he turned toward his bike, she said his name again, softer this time. He looked back. Don't do the thing where you decide you're expendable, she said. He held her gaze a second, then mounted up and rode. Anita crouched behind the cold concrete and pressed her helmet against the wall until the dizziness settled. Her wrist throbbed in hard pulses, and when she uncurled her fingers, she saw they were shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. Miraculously, hers still worked. 2 bars. She dialed 911, gave location, gave event number, gave a clipped report. Officer down, no. Civilian injury, yes. Suspect vehicle mobile. Juvenile still inside, and listened to the operator promise units were inbound as if inbound meant now. When she ended the call, her breath hitched. She hated that sound in herself, that small animal panic she thought she'd trained out years ago. She pressed her gloved knuckles to her eyes, and, for a flicker, she wasn't at Riverside. She was 23 in a courthouse hallway with her sister Lena, both of them pretending the bruises were from falling down porch steps because the judge looked tired and the ex looked clean-shaven and polite. Custody dispute, they called it. He has rights. 2 days later, Lena's car was found near a county line with the tank empty and no sign of her. They found her alive eventually in a motel 3 towns over. alive but changed in ways no paperwork ever captured. Anita had carried that failure like a private tax. Every missed call answered too late. Every "mind your business" she ignored from then on. Every younger woman she walked to her car after meetings because it was easier to do than to explain why she couldn't sleep when she didn't. Greg understood that without her saying it. Maybe that was why he scared her. Most men, she knew, either stepped back from chaos or chased it for ego. Greg did neither. He moved toward danger with the grim focus of someone paying a debt no one else could see. She had watched him at club rides laugh at bad jokes, fix carburetors for kids, sit silent through fireworks because loud nights still got him. She had also watched him volunteer for every hard escort, every courthouse standby, every midnight call, as if stopping would let old ghosts catch up. And she had, against her better judgment, fallen in love with him in small, undramatic pieces. The way he always parked with his bike facing out. The way he carried spare granola bars in his vest for runaway kids. The way he never touched her without asking even when she wanted him to. Now she tasted blood and fear and wanted to scream at him for riding away. Wanted to beg him not to. Wanted, most of all, for once, for both things to be true. Save the girl and come back alive. She keyed the club thread with her good thumb. I'm down at North Gate. Greg moving to main exit. Suspect still mobile. Need medical and law now. Then she whispered to nobody, voice shaking. Please don't make me do another memorial run. She wiped her face with the heel of her glove, tucked herself tighter behind the wall, and listened for engines. Greg's damaged Dyna bucked over cracks as he cut across the central lot toward the marina's front access. The handlebars were off by a few degrees now. He had to counter-steer constantly to keep straight. Every bump stabbed his ribs. He ignored all of it. He reached the main lane in time to see the white van at the far end, near the old ticket kiosk, idling crooked. For a heartbeat, he thought Pike had stalled. Then the driver's door opened. Pike stepped out halfway, looked back toward the rear doors, then looked around the lot, as if counting approaches. Medium build, gray hoodie, ball cap low, jaw tight. Greg was too far for details, but close enough to read posture. Wired, calculating, and near the edge. Pike got back in. Reverse lights flashed. The van backed hard into a stack of abandoned shopping carts and sent them screeching aside, clearing space behind him. Not panic, deliberate lane building. Greg throttled down and kept a shadow behind a line of derelict boat trailers. He needed Pike committed to one direction. A faint siren rose somewhere distant, then cut out. But maybe blocked by terrain. Maybe imagination. The van rolled forward 20 feet, stopped again. Inside the rear compartment, something thudded twice, heavy enough to rock the suspension. Kayla was still in there, still fighting. Pike's arm came out the driver window holding a phone. He looked at it, then threw it out onto the pavement. It shattered. Next, he reached into the passenger footwell and came up with what looked like a small revolver, or maybe a snub-nose flare gun. Hard to tell at distance, both equally bad in the wrong hands. He set it on his lap, visible. Message received. Greg checked his own dead phone one more pointless time, then shoved it away. No helpline, no command net, only timing. The lot geometry narrowed at the exit where two concrete barriers funneled all vehicles onto a single strip before the road opened toward town. Shoulders on either side were soft with erosion and riprap. A van could maybe push through, but not at speed without rolling risk. It was a choke point, ugly, narrow, and close enough for decisive action. Behind him, from somewhere back near the office shells, he heard an engine reeve once. Anita maybe trying to restart. Maybe another rider arriving. Maybe nothing. Ahead, Pike made his final decision. The van lurched into gear and accelerated straight toward the funnel, engine climbing, front end bobbing over broken asphalt. In the filthy rear window, a hand slammed flat against the glass again. Small, frantic, alive. Greg looked at the choke point, then at his bent bike, then at the oncoming van and the distance closing too fast for second guesses. If Pike broke through now, he was gone. Greg stood on the pegs, rolled on throttle, and aimed for the narrow mouth of the exit as the van charged it head-on. Greg hit the choke point half a second before the van did. He stood on the pegs, yanked the bars left, stabbed rear brake, and felt the dyna break loose in a long, screaming skid. Rubber burned, steel shrieked. The bike came around broadside exactly where the concrete barriers pinched the road to one lane. Then he dumped it on purpose. 600 pounds of Harley slammed onto its side, sparks spraying from the crash bar as it slid and wedged crosswise between barrier and riprap shoulder. Greg jumped clear, landed hard on his knees, and rolled behind the nearest concrete block as Pike's van bore down. The van driver hit brakes too late. The front bumper clipped the Dyna's rear wheel with a blunt metallic cannon shot. The bike lurched, shifted, then jammed tighter, dead weight and twisted steel sealing the funnel. Pike leaned on the horn and revved, trying to bull through. The van rocked forward against the bike, tires spinning, smoke boiling off rubber. No room, no angle. Shoulder dropped into mud and broken stone that would swallow a front axle if he tried to climb it at speed. Greg came up from behind the barrier, chest heaving, right arm hanging tight to his ribs. "Engine off!" he shouted. "Now!" Inside the windshield, Pike's face finally showed clear. Stubbled jaw, bloodshot eyes, cap brim low, panic-riding anger. He screamed something Greg couldn't hear over engine roar, then slammed into reverse, trying to back out. The rear wheels spun in loose gravel. Van fishtailed. He got 10 feet, jerked the wheel hard, and tried to ram the shoulder line. No good. The right side dropped, bottomed out, and threw him back toward center. From the rear compartment came 3 heavy thuds in quick succession. Kayla was still fighting. Greg moved along the barrier toward the van's back end, staying low. His lungs burned. Each breath scraped his ribs raw. He pulled his folding knife with his left hand and tucked it against his forearm. The driver's door exploded open. Pike jumped out with the snub nose in his fist, arm rigid, muzzle wobbling with adrenaline. "Back off," he shouted. "Back the hell off. She's my kid. You hear me? Court says I got rights." Greg froze behind the barrier edge, hands visible, voice flat. "You put a zip-tied girl in a cargo hold. That ain't rights." "She lies," Pike screamed. Spit flew from his mouth. "Her mother poisons her. All of them do. You don't know anything." "I know what a scared kid sounds like." Pike swung the gun toward him. Greg saw his trigger finger. Too much on the hook. Knuckle white, shaking. Bad shooter, dangerous shooter. "Move and I drop you." Greg held eye contact and did not move. Behind Pike, from inside the van, Kayla shouted hoarsely, "Don't listen to him! Don't leave!" That broke Pike's composure. He whipped around toward the rear doors and rushed them, fumbling for the latch with gun still in hand. Greg surged forward. Pike yanked the right rear door open a foot. A chain from inside caught and stopped it. Through the gap, Greg saw Kayla's face, bruised cheek, hair matted with sweat, wrists zip-tied in front, ankles bound, duct tape hanging loose from one shoulder, where she'd worked it free. Pike jammed the muzzle into the gap. "Shut up!" he snarled at her. Kayla recoiled, then shouted anyway, voice cracking. "Ya said no one checks. You said—" The gun barked. The shot blew a chunk out of the doorframe, inches from her knee, ricochet, whining off metal into the lot. She screamed and kicked hard at Pike's forearm. The snub-nose flew from his grip and skittered under the van. Greg hit him from the side like a tackling sled. Both men slammed into the rear quarter panel, then dropped into gravel. Pike was younger and fast, all frantic muscle and no technique. Greg was hurt, slower, but precise. Pike clawed for Greg's eyes. Greg trapped the wrist, drove an elbow into Pike's sternum, and pinned him face down with a knee between shoulder blades. Pike bucked and twisted, roaring obscenities, trying to throw him. Greg's injured shoulder threatened to give. Black dots crowded the edges of his vision. "Kayla!" Greg yelled without looking up. "Can you move to the far side? Left wall, low." She was crying too hard to answer for a second. Then, I can scoot." "Do it now, away from door." He felt movement and heard her body scraping metal as she dragged herself left inside the van. Pike got one arm free and drove an elbow backward into Greg's ribs. Pain detonated white-hot. Greg lost pressure. Pike rolled, came up to one knee, and snatched a rusted tire iron from the ground beside a pallet stack. He swung wild at Greg's head. Greg ducked. The iron rang against concrete, showering chips. Second swing came lower, aimed to break a leg. Greg retreated 2 steps, grabbed Pike's hoodie sleeve, and shoved him into the van corner. Pike bounced off steel and came back snarling, eyes gone flat and empty now. "You don't get to take her," Pike hissed. "You don't get to—" He lunged again. Greg stepped inside the arc and drove his forehead into Pike's nose. Cartilage crunched. Pike staggered, blood pouring instantly. Greg stripped the tire iron from his hand, threw it over the barrier, and hammered 2 short body shots that folded Pike over the bumper. Pike still didn't quit. He grabbed Greg's vest and dragged him down with him, both of them crashing into oil-slick gravel. Pike's fingers hooked the scar under Greg's jaw, digging, trying to rip flesh. Greg trapped the hand, rotated it hard, and heard a pop at the wrist. Pike screamed and bit Greg's shoulder through leather. Greg slammed him once, twice into the pavement until the bite released. Somewhere behind them, an engine revved hard, then another. Voices shouted from the access road. "Greg!" Rico's voice. Greg didn't look. He kept both hands on Pike, riding his hips, pinning him as the man thrashed and sobbed and cursed, blood and snot running down his face. Pike's fight changed shape then, less brute force, more pleading rage. "She belongs with me," he gasped. "Her mother's crazy. They all lie. Judges know." Greg leaned close enough for Pike to see exactly what was in his eyes. "She's not property." He yanked a length of broken tie strap from Pike's own belt line, wrenched Pike's arms behind his back, and cinched them until Pike howled. Only then did Greg stand. He stumbled immediately, caught himself on the van door, and tasted blood where he'd bitten his tongue. His hands shook so badly he had to brace his wrists with his other hand to keep the knife steady. He opened the rear doors fully. Kayla was curled against the left interior wall, knees tucked, wrists bound, ankles taped, breath coming in short, panicked bursts that made her whole body tremble. "Hey," Greg said, dropping his voice into the calm cadence that had steadied terrified kids in far worse places. "Look at me. You're out of the worst part now. I need your permission to cut these, okay?" She stared at him, then nodded once so hard it looked like it hurt. He cut wrist ties first, then ankles, then peeled tape off carefully to avoid skin. As soon as her legs were free, she tried to stand, failed, and slid. Easy. He caught her under the elbows and guided her down behind the engine block on the far side of the van, using metal for cover. "Sit here, back against the wheel." "Good." Pike, bound on his side 10 feet away, spat blood and kept talking. "Kayla, baby, tell them you wanted—" "Don't call me that," Kayla screamed, voice raw with rage and terror both. She grabbed a fist-sized rock from the ground and with shaking hands hurled it at him. It struck his shoulder. "You said you'd kill my mom. You said no one would care." Rico skidded in on his bike at the lane mouth. killed the engine, and ran over, helmet still on. He took one look at Pike and planted a boot between Pike's shoulder blades. "Don't touch him," Greg said sharply. "Just hold." Rico nodded, breathing hard. Anita called. "Deputy's 2 minutes." "Watch his legs. He'll run." Pike tried anyway, rolling, trying to get his knees under him. Rico shoved him flat again. Greg crouched in front of Kayla. "Stay with me. In through your nose 4 counts. Hold. Out through your mouth 4. Can you do that?" She copied him, ragged at first, then cleaner. Tears carved pale lines through dirt on her face. "I dropped my old phone," she whispered. "Did you get it?" Greg managed a tight nod. "I got it. Your message is saved. You did good." She swallowed hard, eyes darting to Pike, then back. "Is my mom alive?" "Yes." Greg made himself say it like fact, not hope. "And you're going to see her tonight." Sirens rose then, real this time, swelling from the access road and echoing off empty sheds. Blue strobes flashed through fog. 2 deputies hit the lot at speed, braked hard, and came out with the weapons drawn. "Hands! Show me hands!" Greg put both palms up and stepped back from Kayla. "Suspect on ground, wrist bound," he said evenly. "Weapon under van, driver's side, snub nose. Victim secured, conscious, needs EMS." One deputy covered Pike, the other moved to Greg, cuffing him temporarily as protocol. Greg didn't argue. He watched until Pike had steel on both wrists and 2 knees in his back. Pike twisted his head toward Kayla as they hauled him upright. Blood ran from his nose to his chin. "You ruined everything," he hissed at her. Kayla lifted her shaking chin and met his eyes. "No," she said. "You did." The deputy shoved Pike toward the cruiser. Only when the rear door slammed did Greg's legs start to shake. By the time EMS rolled in, adrenaline had started draining out of everyone at once. Kayla sat on the lowered ambulance step, wrapped in a gray blanket, oxygen clipped under her nose, though she kept trying to pull it off. A female paramedic with tired eyes cleaned a cut along Kayla's wrist, where zip ties had burned skin. Another medic checked Greg's ribs and right shoulder while he stood, because sitting made it worse. "Possible fracture. Definitely contusions," the medic said. "You need imaging." Greg looked past him toward Kayla. "After she goes." "Sir, after she goes." Rico lingered near the patrol car statement area, hands on hips, face still flushed with anger. Anita arrived in the second wave, riding pillion behind a deputy after they found her at the pump house. Her helmet was off now, split lip swollen. Left wrist splinted in a temporary brace. She climbed down stiffly and scanned until she found Greg. He started toward her, then checked himself when pain seized his side. "You're bleeding through your shirt," she said by way of greeting. "You're supposed to be in an ambulance." "They tried." She glanced at Kayla, then back. "I wanted eyes on first." They stood there in the strobing light and diesel smell, not touching, both breathing like they'd run miles. A detective from County Major Crimes finally arrived in plain clothes, hair wet as if he'd left his shower half done. He took one listen to Kayla's first account, then pulled Greg aside for recorded statement. "Walk me from first contact," he said, flipping open a notebook. Greg gave him everything. Diner timestamp. Hand on the glass, partial plate, dispatch event numbers, route turns, dropped phone recovery, audio message content, the barricade, the gunshot, the struggle. No embellishment, no heroics, just sequence and facts. When he finished, the detective rubbed his jaw. "You understand defense is going to come at you for pursuit and physical engagement." Greg nodded once. "I understand she's alive." The detective held his gaze, then closed the notebook. "For what it's worth, Your helmet cam still rolling? Greg blinked. Forgot. They pulled the camera from his scuffed helmet and checked the card in a cruiser laptop. Grainy, shaky footage, but clear enough. Hand in rear window, van route markers. Pike with gun, shot, struggle, Kayla's condition. Chain of evidence locked. Good, the detective said quietly. That makes this hard to spin. An hour after sunrise, under harsh fluorescent bay lights at the county medical center, they brought Kayla's mother in through a secured entrance. She was maybe 35, wearing a thrift store coat over scrubs, hair pulled back so tight it made her face look gaunt. 2 officers flanked her. Her eyes searched the ER hall with the wild focus of someone who had been told both the worst and the best in the same breath and trusted neither. Kayla spotted her first from the gurney. Mom? The woman made a sound Greg would remember for years, half sob, half prayer, and ran to her. They collided in a tangle of blanket and arms and shaking shoulders, both crying too hard for words. I'm sorry, Kayla kept saying into her mother's neck. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, her mother said, fierce through tears. Nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. Greg stood back by the wall, suddenly unsure where to put his eyes. The ER smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee and old fear. He looked down at his scraped knuckles instead. Kayla's mother looked up over her daughter's shoulder and met Greg's gaze. Are you Mr. Lewis? She asked. He nodded. She untangled herself long enough to cross the space and take his hand in both of hers, gripping like she meant to anchor him. They told me what you did. Greg tried to pull his hand back, embarrassed. She held on. Thank you, sounded too small, so she said, voice breaking. You gave me my child back. He swallowed once. She saved herself, too. She left evidence. She kept fighting. The mother nodded hard. That sounds like her. A nurse appeared with paperwork and interruption. The moment broke gently instead of shattering. By mid-morning, Greg sat shirtless on an exam table, while a resident taped his ribs and ordered shoulder films. Anita sat in the chair by the door, despite being told twice to go get her own wrist x-ray. Don't start, she said when he opened his mouth. He shut it. Through the curtain gap, he could hear deputies in the hall discussing charges in clipped terms. Kidnapping in the first, unlawful restraint, domestic battery enhancement, firearm discharge, felony evasion, protective order violation. No more gray language, no more custody, misunderstanding. When they wheeled Greg toward radiology, he passed Kayla again. She raised 2 fingers in a shaky salute. He returned it. 3 nights later, after statements and subpoenas and a sleep debt he couldn't pay off, Greg sat on the back steps of Anita's duplex with 2 untouched beers sweating on the concrete between them. The evening was cold and smelled like wet leaves. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked at nothing. Anita's left wrist was in a hard splint now. Her helmet sat on the table, deep gouge across the visor like a claw mark. Greg's shoulder was in a sling he hated. Purple bruising crawled from his ribs to his hip. For a long minute, they said nothing. Then Anita exhaled and broke first. You scared the hell out of me. Greg stared at the alley light. Yeah. No? Her voice sharpened. Don't yeah me like that's the whole thing. I thought you were dead 3 separate times in 10 minutes. At the connector when I couldn't raise you. At the shot. When I saw Pike on top of you. He rubbed his thumb over the bottle label until it peeled. I know. You don't, Greg. You do this thing where you lock down and act like fear is inefficiency. She turned toward him fully. I am not one of your after-action reports. He winced, not from ribs this time. She went on, quieter. I told you not to be expendable. You went anyway. He looked at her then. Really looked. split lip peeling yellow at the edges, dark circles under her eyes. A woman who had bled in a ditch and still called 911 with a broken wrist and held the line. "I went because there was a kid in that van," he said. "I know why you went." "Then what are we doing?" "We're deciding what this is." Her voice trembled, then steadied. "'Cause I can't do halfway anymore. I can't be your friend you call at dawn for crisis, and then disappear for 2 weeks because you need road time. I can't stand in parking lots pretending I don't care if you come back." Greg turned the bottle in his hands. "I didn't ask you to carry that," she laughed once, bitter. "That's not how feelings work." Silence again. A car passed, stereo low and thumping. Greg spoke without looking up. "In Hellman, I had a lance corporal who used to write letters he never mailed. Said if he mailed them, people at home would worry. Said worrying was selfish. He died with 37 unsent letters in his wall locker." Greg swallowed. "I read them when they shipped his stuff. He told everybody he was fine. He wasn't." Anita watched him, eyes softening. "I came home and did the same thing in different clothes," he said. "Keep moving. Keep it light. Don't ask anyone to stake their heart on somebody who still wakes up reaching for a rifle that isn't there." He finally met her gaze. "That was cowardice dressed up as discipline." Her breath hitched. "I love you," he said. The words rough like they hadn't been used enough. Not in a neat, easy way. In a way that scares me because it means I have to stay present when things are quiet, not just when something's on fire. But I do. I love you. Anita closed her eyes for a second, and when she opened them, they were wet. "Say it again," she whispered. "I love you." She laughed through tears. "Idiot." "Accurate." She reached with her good hand and hooked 2 fingers in his vest, tugging him closer carefully so they didn't jar injuries. Their foreheads touched first. Then she kissed him. Slow, deliberate, tasting of salt and beer and relief. When they broke apart, she kept her hand on his cheek. "I love you too," she said. "I have for a long time. I tried not to because you're stubborn and impossible and allergic to needing people." "Working on that?" "You better be." He nodded. "Here's what I can promise tonight. No disappearing acts. If I'm spinning out, I say so. If a call comes and it's dangerous, we talk lane assignments before wheels move. And if one of us says stop, we actually listen unless a life is immediate." Anita considered. "Add one thing. Name it. You come to Sunday dinner at my place. My brother, his kids, the whole noisy circus. No tactical exits after 20 minutes. Greg looked horrified enough that she snorted. "That's cruel and unusual." "That's commitment." He sighed theatrically. "Fine. But only if you come to my Thursday 5 group once. Sit in the lobby, meet people, see the part of my life I keep hidden." "Done." They sealed it with another kiss, shorter this time, then leaned back against the step rail shoulder to shoulder. Inside, Anita's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She checked it and handed it over. Text from an unknown number, then a name. Kayla Mercer. "Wanted you both to know I slept 6 hours straight. Mom says thank you again. Also, detectives found my other shoe, LOL. Tell biker lady her helmet is badass." Anita smiled. Greg felt something unclench in his chest he hadn't known was still tight. He typed back with one thumb, "Proud of you. Keep talking. Keep fighting. We're here." He set the phone down and took Anita's hand. For once, neither of them let go first. 2 months later, the courthouse smelled like old paper and radiator heat. Greg sat on a hard wooden bench outside courtroom 3 in his cleanest jeans and a button-down shirt that fought his shoulders. No vest today. Judge's order. Anita sat beside him in a black sweater, splint gone, wrist still stiff. She bounced her knee once until he set a hand over it. She stilled. When they called his name, he stood and felt the same boxed-in pressure he always got indoors with no visible exits. He counted doors anyway. Habit. On the stand, he testified for 47 minutes. Defense tried the script they'd promised. Vigilante biker, unlawful pursuit, personal bias against fathers in custody disputes. Greg answered in plain statements and refused bait. "Mr. Lewis," defense counsel said, "isn't it true you chose to escalate rather than wait for trained law enforcement?" Greg looked past him to where Kayla sat with a victim advocate, chin up, hands folded steady. "I chose to keep a child alive until trained law enforcement arrived," he said. No flourish, no anger, just fact. Then Kayla testified. Her voice shook only once when she repeated Pike's line about nobody believing her because of the papers. She recovered without prompting. Greg watched the jury watch her and knew the room had shifted. By evening, Pike was remanded on all primary counts, pending trial. Plea leverage crushed by the phone audio, helmet cam, physical evidence, and his own words caught on body mic after arrest. Later came the plea deal, guilty to kidnapping and aggravated domestic assault. Long sentence, no contact orders that actually had teeth. That night, Greg stopped at the Truck Haven Diner for the first time since the chase. The neon still buzzed. Same burnt coffee, same fryer grease. But by the register, beside lottery slips and gum, stood a clear acrylic holder packed with hotline cards. Domestic Violence Help 24/7 in English and Spanish. County shelter numbers, teen text line. Someone had added a handwritten sign in Ruth's block letters. "If you need a safe call, tell staff you need the blue menu." Ruth poured him coffee and tapped the cards. "Figured we can do better than shrugging." One of the truckers from that morning sat at the far end of the counter. He recognized Greg, removed his cap, and walked over awkwardly. "Hey," he said. "Back then, I said family crap." He looked down at his boots. "I was wrong." Greg studied him, then nodded once. "Do better next time." "Yeah." The man swallowed. "I will." Near dawn on a Saturday, Greg and Anita rode not alone but in formation, 6 bikes, staggered, engines low and steady, as part of an escort for a shelter survivor heading to file protective order paperwork. No lights, no sirens, just presence. At red lights, they boxed the lane without fanfare. At the courthouse drop-off, they held the perimeter while she walked inside between 2 advocates. Greg watched her shoulders square as the doors closed behind her. Later, on the return leg, they peeled off at exit 11 for coffee. The town still looked weather-beaten. Streetlights still hummed over empty lots and flaking signs. The mill still breathed its sour heat into the morning. Not everything changed because one man made one choice. But some things did. Greg parked his repaired Dyna facing out of habit. Anita killed her engine beside him and nudged his boot with hers. Through the diner window, hotline cards glowed under fluorescent light like small, bright flags. He took off his gloves, flexed the hand that had once pinned Pike to gravel, and felt Anita's fingers slide into his. For years, he had ridden Dawn to keep the noise manageable. Now, standing there in the thin blue before sunrise, he heard something else under the engine. Tick and highway hiss. Voices carried forward. Promises kept. People who no longer had to fight alone. "Coffee?" Anita asked. Greg looked at the door, then at her, and smiled with the left side of his mouth. "Yeah," he said. "Let's go in."